It's settled here. Begin with the reflections on universal well-being. 先来念诵慈悲观. May I
abiding well-being in freedom from affliction, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may I maintain well-being in thyself. May everyone abide in well-being, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may they maintain well-being in themselves. May all beings released from all suffering, and may they not be parted from the good fortune they have attained. When they act upon intention, all beings are the owners of their action, and inherits its results. Their future is born from such action, companion to such action, and results will be their home. All actions with intention, be they skillful or harmful, of such acts there will be the heirs.
So good morning, everyone. Today I was thinking of actually going to a bowing journal entry by Marty, our Dharma Master Heng Chau, near the beginning of their pilgrimage. And the reason was because we've been having some conversations here in our 3-month retreat. And I think a lot of the experiences that Reverend Heng Shi and Dharma Master Heng Chau had during the beginning of their pilgrimage matches a lot of our experiences as well as we try to go through this process of cultivation. You know, what happens when one really decides to cultivate? Do you make the translation start? The translation going? Okay. And make co-host, I guess? Okay. So, I've got the article here by Dharma Master Heng Chau, June 7th, 1977. This is just a few months into their pilgrimage. And he calls something, the title of the entry, Detoxification Centers for the Heart. So detox. Entitled, It Gets Worse Before It Gets Better. Some friends of mine have made this observation. Since becoming involved in Gold Mountain, you have become more intolerant and arrogant, less humble and more critical. It can look like that, I suppose. In fact, many people who draw near and practice Buddhism go through some rough and unpleasant changes at first. Some find themselves getting more angry or jealous. Others experience an increase in laziness or greed for food and sex. Some fly off the handle where before they were calm and mellow. Some become stingy and even more hateful. All this is true. It's only half true. There's more here than meets the eye. So I think this is actually a really key point, because if we were just start on our cultivation, we really apply energy, all of a sudden things seem to go really badly.
Wrong.
Yeah. Actually, Reverend Heng Shi yesterday was sharing, which I haven't heard him use this kind of analogy before, but it's pretty graphic. Like we have a cesspool, and he described all the stuff in the cesspool, and then when you start cultivating, you pull out the plug, and for some reason I guess you're standing under the plug, and all the cess of the, how do you say, excrement, or you use other words, could cover your body and your mind, and you use just the ick, right?
Warm shower.
Warm shower. Yeah, warm shower. You can think of it as a warm shower. Yes, a warm shower in our afflictions. So then Marty says, it gets worse, like this. To get worse like this is actually a wonderful opportunity. And I sincerely wish more people will try it. Yeah, people could take more opportunities to take a warm shower. How can I say that? As a hospital orderly, I spent numbers of years working in alcohol and drug detoxification. People trying to kick an addiction to booze or heroin can get pretty ugly and unhealthy looking. In every case, after a few weeks, they look worse than when they first arrived. And the ones that tried the hardest look the worst. Their visiting family invariably comments about their apparent deterioration and wonders if maybe it would be better just for them to feed the patient's habit. On the whole, the process of suffering and cleansing was not very pretty. When it was over, though, those that stuck with it really had their health and minds back. But undergoing a little suffering, a bigger suffering was ended. Gold Mountain and Buddhism, and I conclude Buddha Vihara and all the other DRBGA monasteries, are in many ways detoxification centers for the heart. People come to them to withdraw from the ego and the afflictions of self. Most get worse before getting better. And all in all, it can be as intense and painful as major surgery or good psychological therapy. So we're doing Dharma surgery. Kicking the afflictions of one's own greed, anger, and stupidity is harder and takes longer than any renobarb or alcohol treatment. Withdrawal from self seems endless for me, like trying to stop the waves on the beach. Hard work, lots of patience, and small changes. But with a good teacher and a supportive community, there exists a very rare opportunity to try. If you are really afflicted and really lucky, you can end up in a 2-week Chan meditation sit, or do a bowing pilgrimage, or translate sutras, or try to pull weeds on 237 acres. Dharma doors are as limitless as the afflictions they supplant. Just keeping the lay precepts is an accomplishment, and to do it well is the way to truly kick the habit of birth and death and end all suffering. It is unimaginably hard work and not too comfortable, this cultivation stuff. But it's a real opportunity to shed all the toxins and dead skin. People get happier and healthier cultivating the Buddha Dharma. Now there's a chance to be really free and of benefit to all beings. There's no reason to hang on to suffering and sickness. Take the chance. Let Buddhism bring out the worst in you. Marty's line at the end. Let Buddhism bring out the worst in you. Well, I was just reflecting a little bit also on my own process in detoxificating the heart. I remember very early on when I kind of first made this resolve to cultivate seriously, and I was in college. And I would often feel lost and doubtful. You know, everyone else is doing these other things that I didn't really find that meaningful. But as I tried to make sense of the Dharma, it also seemed very foreign. You know, growing up, and I don't think I actually went to a monastery before, you know, as a kid. I think my mom maybe had brought me to see a monk, you know, occasionally when some Tibetan monk or somebody would come through. But, you know, growing up, it didn't have much religious upbringing. Didn't have much Buddhism other than having an altar in the house. And so here I was, you know, trying to really become a Buddhist monk in my mind, in my heart. And I'd wake up early in the morning and do morning chanting every day. You know, this is at Stanford. So I would wake up, you know, probably like 4:30 or something, and go to the little office in the upstairs of Old Union Clubhouse. And pretty much I'd be the only one awake, walking just through the streets. And to me, pretty much that time, pretty much everyone's sleeping. And I'd go to the room and I'd recite, I'd meditate, I'd read the bowing journals. And then I'd come back and get ready for class. And in class, I would also try to be as mindful as possible because, I really wanted to walk this path. And on the weekends, I would come to the monastery every chance I got. But in my heart, although I put up a lot of energy, I could still feel that, what am I doing? How does this work? And I'd feel really lost at times. And I found there was one medicine that actually helped at that time. When I would feel really down, really feeling like I just can't do this, what am I doing? How does this work? I really want to do this, but I don't know the way. And I have all this kind of inner turmoil. I remember I'd go into the little office, which isn't big, it's just like maybe not even as big as this front area here, maybe 2/3 of this size. But it was a little private space, away from the dorms that have the Buddhist books. And I would go in there and I would kind of just recite. When I would do it, I'd recite the Shuranga mantra 3 times. Namo Sanando Sujendo Ye Alahadi. And somehow after I recited the Shuranga mantra 3 times, I found a little bit of solidity. I think maybe because the Shuranga mantra is associated with being ultimately durable. By reciting it 3 times, I can kind of find a little bit of ground for my heart, for my mind. I was like, okay, this is ground zero. Okay, I can keep going. And, I did that, I think actually fairly often, especially in the initial years, because I was going on a different path, something that was unfamiliar to me, unfamiliar to my family and friends, unfamiliar to the college around me. And I had to kind of reestablish a new ground for myself, a new place of refuge. And that's not easy, because, where so much of our well-being and sense of safety is tied to the familiar. My parents, my mom and dad, my brother, my friends in school, my computer games, basketball, my identity of being a good student in a particular way. And having to, I won't say having to, because it was my choice, but then making a decision, you know what? I'm going to let those go and walk the spiritual path. But although in my heart I could say that's my resolve, still I had all the, you could say, the karmic habits that have accumulated in a lifetime, if not lifetimes, to work through. So there's a kind of a detoxification, as Marnie was talking about. As these things arise, it often feels even worse. That I remember feeling like, before I started to cultivate, life was actually quite simple. It's like in the Matrix movie, I think there's the blue pill and the red pill, I think. And I think the red pill is when you choose to wake up, and then the blue pill is when you stay asleep. It's like, is it possible to go back? I couldn't figure out how I can even go back, because can I like re-believe in all the things that don't make any sense to me, and run after, money, sex, fame, food, and sleep. It's like, I've kind of crossed that bridge. I just can't go back. But I look forward, it's like, but this is so hard. And honestly, during that time, I found, one was having the Dharma for sure. That was a kind of a grounding point, to have true principles that I could say this actually makes sense. But the other part was having a good group of friends. At that time, there was Dharma Run Buddhist Youth. And being able to share my difficulties with others who could empathize and listen, who are also going through their own struggles in a similar way. There's a kind of solidarity. I think probably these detoxification centers probably use a lot of group circles to kind of process the experience of letting go of something that has given us a lot of safety, a lot of seemingly joy, right? Take some drug, take some alcohol, pain disappears. And we feel, oh, everything's okay. And say, actually, I can find that everything's okay, no problem, without that drug, without that alcohol, without that habit. Now that takes some effort, some patience. And so, I think each of us goes through our own detoxification process. It's not like the detox process happens just in a few years. It's an ongoing detoxification. But what happens that I found is, as the toxins get purged bit by bit, we actually discover an inner well-being that goes, oh, this seems like almost nothing, but everything seems actually okay. And I can just actually rest in my awareness with contentment, with peace, with joy. It's like, it wasn't so far away. So maybe I'll just share that much for today, and we can do our 3 steps, 1 bow. So for those of us who are maybe doing a little bit of detox, either here or in the world, I would say just keep having some patience. This process is a kind of an ongoing one, but what we're doing is actually finding real health, true well-being. And the intoxicants that we take don't really deliver in the long run. Okay.
No hangovers.
And there's no hangovers. Remember, I'm sure likes to say, we only start cultivating when we're sick of being sick. And we're done with that, then we start to really cultivate. We have the inner resolve to do it. If we still want to be sick, okay, then we start to wait. Okay, so hope everyone can be sick of being sick and find real health. Amitofo.